Game of Thrones Jon Snow spin-off series returns in development at HBO. Jon Snow is coming back from the dead again, but this time it is not the Lord of Light doing the resurrection. It is HBO bringing his spin-off series back from development hell. And honestly, this might be more shocking than watching him crawl out of that table gasping for air in Season 6. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we are about to dissect the bombshell announcement that the Jon Snow series is officially back in active development at HBO, and this changes absolutely everything we thought we knew about the future of the Game of Thrones universe. After months of watching this project die more deaths than a Stark family member, HBO just casually dropped the news that yes, the Jon Snow spinoff is happening. Yes, it is in active development. And yes, you should probably start emotionally preparing yourself right now. This is the television equivalent of finding out your ex who said they needed space is actually ready to commit this time. And you're simultaneously excited and terrified because you have been hurt before and you're not sure your heart can take another betrayal. But here we are, ready to dive back into Westeros with the king in the north who never wanted to be king of anything. Let us break down exactly what this announcement means, because HBO did not just casually mention this in passing. They are putting their full weight behind confirming that the Jon Snow series is back on track, which suggests they have cracked the creative code that was supposedly holding everything back. Remember when Kit Harington said the project was not moving forward? Remember when everyone assumed it was dead and buried? Well, someone at HBO apparently said, "Hold my wine," and got to work figuring out how to make this work. The fact that they succeeded where others failed is either incredibly impressive or deeply concerning, depending on your level of optimism about corporate decision-making. Now here is where things get really interesting from a development perspective. For a project to go from seemingly canceled to actively in development requires some major shifts behind the scenes. We are talking about new creative teams potentially coming aboard, fresh story approaches being explored, or perhaps Kit Harington himself having a change of heart about returning to the character that defined his career. Something fundamental changed, and whatever that something is, it convinced HBO that they could finally tell a Jon Snow story worth telling. That is not a small achievement, considering the astronomical expectations and the lingering trauma from how the original series ended. The timing of this announcement is absolutely crucial and probably not accidental. HBO is currently riding high on House of the Dragon's success and building hype for a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which means they're strategically positioning the Game of Thrones universe as their flagship franchise for the foreseeable future. Adding Jon Snow back into that mix creates a trifecta of content spanning different eras of Westeros history and future. It is like they are building a Game of Thrones cinematic universe, and Jon Snow is their Captain America, except with more emotional trauma and significantly better hair. Let's talk about what bringing Jon Snow back means for the character and the larger narrative. When we last saw Jon, he was heading north beyond the Wall with the free folk after being exiled for killing Daenerys, which was simultaneously the right thing to do and the most heartbreaking decision he ever made. A spin-off series gives HBO the chance to explore what happens next, to answer the questions that finale left hanging like a poorly tied noose. What does Jon do with his freedom? How does he reconcile his Targaryen heritage with his Stark upbringing? Does he ever return to Westeros? And most importantly, does Ghost finally get the attention and screen time he deserved all along? These are the questions keeping fans awake at night. The challenges of making a Jon Snow series work are not insignificant, and HBO clearly understands this based on how long they have been developing and redeveloping the project. You cannot just throw Kit Harington in some furs and call it a day. The story needs to justify its existence, needs to feel essential rather than exploitative, needs to give Jon an arc that feels earned rather than forced. It is like trying to write a sequel to a book that ended on a questionable note. You have to honor what came before while also proving there is more story to tell. And that balancing act is harder than making Valyrian steel. Here is what makes this announcement particularly exciting beyond just the nostalgia factor. Jon Snow represents the heart of the original Game of Thrones series. He was the character who embodied honor in a world that punished it, who fought for what was right even when it cost him everything. who united enemies against common threats. His journey was the emotional core that kept viewers invested through all the political machinations and shocking deaths. Bringing him back gives HBO a chance to recapture that emotional resonance that made Game of Thrones appointment television in the first place. The potential for this series is genuinely massive when you consider all the storytelling possibilities. Jon Snow Beyond the Wall opens up entirely new regions of Westeros that we barely explored in the original series. We could get deeper dives into the free folk culture, exploration of the far north beyond what we have seen, and maybe even answers to lingering questions about the White Walkers and the magical forces that exist in that frozen wasteland. It is like having an entire unexplored continent just waiting for someone to draw the map. And Jon Snow is the perfect character to lead that expedition. But let us address the elephant in the room that is actually a direwolf wearing an elephant costume. Can Kit Harington still carry a series as Jon Snow? The answer is almost certainly yes. Harington proved throughout 8 seasons that he could anchor the emotional weight of Game of Thrones, that he could make brooding look heroic, that he could deliver "I do not want it" 17 different ways and make it feel meaningful every single time. The question is not about his ability, but about whether the material will match his commitment. HBO needs to give him a script worthy of the character and the actor, and based on the fact that they brought this project back from the dead, they presumably believe they have found that script. The fan expectations for this series are going to be absolutely astronomical, which is both exciting and terrifying for everyone involved. Game of Thrones fans are not known for their patience or their willingness to forgive. What this announcement really represents is HBO making a clear statement about their commitment to the Game of Thrones franchise. They are not letting it fade away or become a nostalgic memory. They are actively building, expanding, and investing in this universe because they believe there are still stories worth telling and audiences hungry to watch them. The Jon Snow series returning to development is not just about one character or one show. It is about HBO declaring that Westeros remains their crown jewel, and they are willing to put in the work to polish that crown until it shines again. Thanks for watching, and may your excitement for Jon Snow's return be tempered with just enough skepticism to protect your heart from potential disappointment.